Well, friends of Mundo Maldini, we are going to analyze in depth, a bit more calmly, what this Manchester City 0 Tottenham 4 was, which I commented on Movistar and which I would say is a match for the history books. I didn't make the video right after the match because as soon as the match ended, I had to rush home. I commented on the match for Movistar to discuss the Celta-Barça. After the Celta-Barça match ended, I made the video about Celta-Barça, and I thought it was better to wait until this morning to make this video for you. Now with the Wisecout report available on what was this City 0 Tottenham 4, which among other things marks the 5th consecutive defeat of Pep Guardiola's team, something absolutely unprecedented in his career. Of course, 5 consecutive defeats for Pep Guardiola's team, a lot to analyze. Are we going to analyze what happened with Loderling Haaland? What is happening now with Manchester City? Is it just Rodri's absence? Because there is obviously a lot to discuss here. It is true that Rodri is not there. Kevin De Bruyne reappeared in the second half, played just a few minutes. But just the absence of Rodri and Kevin De Bruyne causes the team to lose 5 consecutive matches, 3 consecutive league matches. Let's see what happens today with Liverpool and Southampton. If Liverpool wins today, the next match is Liverpool-Manchester City. It's almost a final for Manchester City. We are going to analyze all of that. I have left you some screenshots, and you will see them from the match. We are going to include the Wisecout report. A lot to analyze, and of course, also talk about what an amazing match Tottenham had. Here we have Pedro Porro and Maddison. Maddison had an almost perfect match. If Maddison were to grade this match, he would give himself practically a 9.5 at least. And Porro also made a serious mistake that could have cost the team a goal, but in the end, he scored a sensational goal. It was an amazing match for Tottenham at Manchester City with so much to analyze. Come on, let's go. Well, while we sadly see that PSV has just scored, Alessandro Del Piero has just appeared. Here you have Del Piero chatting. I don't want to bother you, so I'm going to get much closer, but here we have Del Piero talking with Fabio Capello. I suppose you can see it. We have... This is Abraham. You can see that on the right is Abraham. The other is Okafor, who is here. Theo Hernandez, who was going to be a starter. Watch out for Milan's left wing with Theo Hernandez. And well, we have an absolute genius right in front of us. An absolute genius. One of my favorite players, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. The great Zlatan Ibrahimovic is right here, who is now involved with the club, of course. You just can't help but look away from Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He is looking at the Santiago Bernabeu, which, to be honest, is a truly crazy stadium. Well, this is the photo of the first goal. This is the photo of the first goal with a fabulous pass from Kulusevski, whom we see here in the background, and the shot from Maddison. Let's see, when City loses at home 4-0, it can't be a coincidence, and when they lose 3 matches in a row, it can't be a coincidence. Let's first look at the 11 players, and then I'll comment on some details with some rather generic aspects of the match, and then we'll move on to some more details. But here we have the 11. Ederson guarded the goal, Stones and Walker, with Gundogan, Rico Luis, double pivot, Gundogan, Rico Luis, Bernardo Silva, who actually ended up playing much further back because Bernardo Silva ended up playing over here. And when we all expected it to be Foden on the left and Savinho on the right, what he did was switch them. That is, I have placed the 11 as we thought it would be, but in the end, Savinho played on the left, Foden on the right, and it didn't work. And Bernardo Silva, at many moments, friends of Mundo Maldini, with Gundogan and Rico Luis here, came back very far to help. He came back very far to help. Let's look at this exactly, and now we'll talk about Tottenham. But notice this concept of Bernardo Silva, very far back, helping. Everyone has to try to compensate for the absence of a player who is proving to be, as we know, extremely important, of course, but he is indeed proving it. Notice where Bernardo Silva is, what I told you before. Look, Gundogan, Rico Luis, Bernardo Silva, what I'm telling you here, very far back. Bernardo Silva completely away from the area. If you dominate a lot in the game, as the team often clearly does, look, we have it here again. Bernardo Silva very far back with Gundogan. Later, I will talk a lot about what Tottenham did. Bernardo Silva, Rico Luis, Gundogan, here you have it. Bernardo Silva with the ball very far back. Of course, it forces him into a playmaking role that can be important. Look here where Bernardo Silva is. 2009 with Gundogan and Rico Luis ahead. I'm not saying that this role of Bernardo Silva can't be important, but of course, to replace Rodri, you are using players who usually do much more damage near the opponent's area, like in the case of Bernardo Silva. So, of course, in the end, you are dismantling several players in their positions where you do the most damage to compensate for the absence of another player. This is what is happening, among other things, I know there are many more things that we are going to analyze. That's why I was telling you here, you have seen it clearly. Bernardo Silva very far back. Tottenham, Vicario, Pedro Porro, Dragusin, Davis and Udogi with Bissouma and Sarr. Maddison and Kulusevski on the right. They are on the left and Solanke up front. What did Tottenham do? To be a very brave team. I mentioned it in the broadcast at the beginning of the match. I am going to enjoy this match a lot because Tottenham is a very brave team. Tottenham is a team that pushes the defense very high, permanently very high. Look, and this is even while winning 2-0, you will see another detail. Winning 2-0, Tottenham 2009 with a 2-goal advantage on Manchester City's field. Look at what they were doing. Look where they positioned the defense. This is with 2-0. This is with 2-0 already. Look, here you have it. This is with 2-0 already. Look where Tottenham positions the defense. How high Tottenham pushes the defense. This is really outrageous. And this is a risk that Postecoglou takes. I have seen them do this even with one player less, with 10, but logically, in the end, this makes life very complicated for the opponent. It is a risk that he takes. Notice that we have Harrington offside here. Have to be very aware of when to step out. Look where they are. It is a real outrage with 2-0 at the back line. And then the pressure that Tottenham exerts, which must also be praised, of course. Look at this play. In this play, I want to show you something, and that is, look, this is the start of the play for Tottenham's second goal. Solan, Kesar, Kulusevski, Maddison and Son are pressing. And we have Guardiola here, who seems to be alone. Well, let him go out to the left. The ball falls precisely to Guardiola on the left. And look where Pedro Porro arrives. This is the previous play, Guardiola alone. And here, look where Pedro Porro arrives, receiving the ball from Guardiola. And Guardiola has no choice but to make a pass. He makes a mistake because he could have cleared the ball. He wants to play out, which is a bit of the DNA of Manchester City. He plays a ball practically without looking. And here Maddison intercepts it, resulting in the 0-2 with the pass from Son. This is also a result of the pressure, well, not a little, but a lot of the pressure that Tottenham applied. In fact, we must also take into account the great match that Tottenham played. It's not just the problems that Manchester City has, which they do have many, among other things, a team that usually dominates matches, right? Right. Look, besides, well, Gundogan, by the way, is in a terrible form right now. That's the reality. But look here, for example, at the ball position, I mean, how it was like a sawtooth. The City was exchanging possession with Tottenham. It is true that in terms of passing accuracy, City was more present throughout the match or for a large part of the match. And then in terms of duel percentage, the same. A match where Manchester City is not able to maintain a line. In fact, when the second half started with 0-2, the first minutes were dominated by Tottenham. When we could expect it to be, let's say, a much greater dominance. By Manchester City, it was by Tottenham. That is the reality. I believe that we can only understand all these concepts once we have the exhaustive Wyckout report. In terms of ball possession, City had the ball for more time, correct? City had the ball for more time. But let's look at shots as well, because in terms of shots, there were 7 shots on target for Tottenham compared to 5 for Manchester City. It is true that City shot more, quite a bit more, but Tottenham had more shots on target. This is something that has also been happening to Manchester City. Offensive actions, yes, more from City, correct. 22 with shots, although you have already seen that only 5 were on target compared to 7 from Tottenham. In the end, I believe that all of this is quite key for us to understand what happened. Look at this. Offensive duels. This is important. Offensive duels. Tottenham won more offensive duels than Manchester City. It's outrageous. Tottenham won more offensive duels than Manchester City. All of this we are seeing is somewhat a consequence of what we saw, that the result is a bit exaggerated. 0-4, well, probably yes. Was Vicario one of the best of Tottenham? Well, probably yes. I'm not saying no, but it is clear that Tottenham won fairly. It's evident. And another thing is that Gundogan is not doing well. The pressure that City applies, Gundogan then arrives late to almost everything, so he gets broken down too easily. Look here at this play. City tries to apply pressure correctly with Gundogan, with Rico Lewis, Bernardo Silva higher up, long ball, ball in depth, and both Gundogan and Sabinho are already out of the play, practically everyone out of the play. Gundogan was arriving late to almost everything. I think they were missing Kovacic and Rodri. So in the end, what started as, I said it during the broadcast, a celebration for Rodri's Ballon d'Or, ended up being a true nightmare night for Manchester City. I don't want to miss the chance to comment now how good I think City will recover. It's impossible for them to keep losing matches, but of course, they are very close to having very few options left to win this Premier, which seemed unthinkable. Let's see what Liverpool does in Southampton. And to finish, I want to see some details, of course, also from Tottenham. because what Maddison did was impressive. Maddison's match, here we have it, was a true madness in the first half, scoring both goals, playing in midfield, participating constantly. I usually show about the favorite team, but let's take a look at Maddison. Yesterday, 82 actions, 60 correct. The 2 shots he attempted were on target, and they were 2 goals. And then look at the actions he made. In the first half, getting further up. In the second half, practically winning everything in midfield. Incredible. If we compare it to what Erling Haaland did. Look, this is Erling Haaland, of course. They are very different players, but Erling Haaland had 2 shots on target, could have scored a goal, only 2 dribbles, and look at how little he participated. Logically, the team has to help Erling Haaland much more. Anyway, these are details from this Tottenham-Manchester City match, this 0-4 that I wanted to discuss with you. I don't want to make a video too long either, but I think we have analyzed and seen some clear concepts. I believe Manchester City will recover, but perhaps it will be too late for the Premier. We'll see. Watch out, the Champions League is there, but it's true that without Rodri, De Bruyne is recovering, but it's true that without Rodri, the team is struggling a lot. Now, I also say one thing, I insist, it's not the same. In other words, it is not justified. The fact that Rodri and De Bruyne are not there is not justified with the matches the team has lost, which are 5 consecutive matches, 3 consecutive Premier matches, nor the oldest ones around. Remember something like that. A hug. Bye. 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 Bye.